slowly now. I'm going to help you. Only the muscle work. You see? Definitely. Only the muscle work. That's what you want.
Francis Benfatto believes that most people are not really training the muscle. They are moving the weight, using momentum, changing the angle, and allowing other muscles to help. His solution is to slow everything down and make the target muscle do almost all the work.
As a youngster, during my 20s, I love it, pushing heavy weight and doing volume of work as well. So I was doing 3 exercise per muscle, 4 or 5 sets per exercise, and in between 8 to 12 repetitions.
But here is where the story becomes much more interesting, because Francis Benfatto did not originally build his physique using only light weights, low volume, and extremely low repetitions. The younger Benfatto trained heavy, performed plenty of sets, and sometimes trained twice per day. So, which version of Benfatto should we learn from? The man who built the physique, or the older bodybuilder who discovered how to preserve it? Francis Benfatto is remembered as one of bodybuilding's most aesthetic physiques. But behind the symmetry and posing was a training philosophy that changed dramatically throughout his career. Today, we are going to examine how he really trained, why he eventually abandoned heavy weights, and whether perfect form can genuinely replace load. Let's decode it.
Were you lifting heavy weights when you started? I mean, since you were doing, a bench press competition, you were obviously, focused on probably benching heavier, but was your approach in building your physique, was it a heavy approach or was it moderate approach? Because you have a very aesthetic pleasing body, and if you look at people that lift heavy, majority of them has very blocky waist or very blocky build. What was your approach when you started?
During the 80s, when I was an amateur at a national level, European level, world level, I was training in a way that I always sensed the exercise muscle. So that was my guideline. So I always train with form to a certain extent, not as much as today. Today, it's really the form who prevails. But at that time, already I understood that sensation means that you're isolating your muscle, you're really utilizing your muscle while you work out, and you're not only concerned about the weight.
This is the first important distinction. Benfatto always cared about feeling the muscle. Even when he was younger, he wasn't interested only in moving the largest weight possible. But that does not mean he was using the highly controlled PPM method we are seeing today. The basic idea was already there. The complete system was not.
But at that time, already I understood that sensation means that you're isolating your muscle, you're really utilizing your muscle while you work out, and you're not only concerned about the weight. But still, as a youngster, during my 20s, I love it, pushing heavy weight and doing volume of work as well. So I was doing 3 exercise per muscle, 4 or 5 sets per exercise, and in between 8 to 12 repetitions.
And now we get to the part people could easily leave out. He loved heavy training. He was also doing approximately 15 sets for each muscle group. That is not low volume training. It is much closer to the traditional bodybuilding approach we have already seen from Arnold, Serge Nubret, and Ronnie Coleman than it is to Menser's minimalism.
What was the rest between your sets? Were you focusing on 2 minutes, 60 seconds? How did you time that?
Yes, also it was important not to rest too long in between sets. I increased the load from one set to the next, but I didn't spend much time in between sets in order to create this intensity needed to stimulate the muscle to a point where I could thereafter grow.
So he had load, he had volume, and he had relatively short rests. That combination creates a huge amount of work. The muscle sensation mattered, but it was sitting inside a demanding high volume bodybuilding routine. We shouldn't rewrite his history and pretend that this physique was created by performing only a few very slow sets with light dumbbells.
And I opened my gym when I was 21 years old in order to be able to train in the morning and in the afternoon, one session in the morning, double split, and one in the afternoon when the client wasn't there. And then after I took care of my client. So early afternoon and early morning.
And there it is. He sometimes trained twice per day. That is completely different recovery situation from the program he recommends later. It also gives us the main lesson of this first moment. Benfatto's later philosophy grew from his early experience, but it was not necessarily the exact method that originally built him. The younger Benfatto had the energy and motivation to tolerate this. The older Benfatto eventually decided that he no longer wanted to.
All stress we have in life can be comparable to training. Training is very stressful, so the less stressful it is at the beginning, the better. And you improve the stress situation. It's like when you go out with your car in the morning, you stress. And then after a few hours, you drive, and even if traffic, no problem. You have adapt. You have adapt to this level of stress. So you're cool. Something here. So don't go too fast.
I like the principle here. He doesn't want the first exercise or first set to feel like a fight for survival. He wants the body to adapt progressively before the hardest work begins. That makes sense, particularly for an older lifter or anyone training around previous injuries. But warming up progressively is not the same thing as avoiding hard training altogether. The difficult work still has to arrive eventually.
I changed quite a bit the way I was training. When I prepare for the Australian Grand Prix, for my comeback, I train less often and I train more with form. So I was on five. I was more considering doing the best possible form of execution instead of going to intensity. Before, when I was preparing for me, I wasn't training that heavy next to the other, but I was training very intense. I was doing superset, tricep, giant set. I was doing a lot of training technique such as double contraction, rest pose, drop set, a lot of technique and all in order to intensify my training. So it was very, very intense, but also very taxing and very demanding for my body, for my physiology, and for my mind. This time, I trained differently. I I was going very careful about the weight, and I was dedicated about the form. So I was doing full range of motion. I was not balancing the weight. I was not using external forces such as momentum, sudden burst, body leverage, and all. So I was very, very careful about that. So that was the difference.
This is probably where the change becomes clearest. His whole approach wasn't only heavy, it was also filled with intensity techniques, high frequency, and a huge amount of physical and mental stress. For the comeback, he trained less often, became more careful with the weight, and placed much more attention on the range, control, and execution. So Benfato didn't stop training hard. He changed where the difficulty came from.
So for me, the PPM, the progressive performance methodology, happened during the Australian Grand Prix preparation. When I was doing my comeback, I decided to rethink the way I was training before. because I couldn't maintain my muscle size and I couldn't enjoy training anymore after competing. So what I did, I trained less frequently and I trained with less weight and I improved the form. And it all started during my preparation, my contest preparation in 2006. And since then, the ppm has evolved to a point where I can really stimulate the muscle to a point where you can expect to go. So you stress maximally the muscle without too much stressing your body and your physiology.
This is where ppm really begins. Less frequency, less load, more control. The goal is not to make the workout easy. The goal is to move as much of the stress as possible away from the joints and the rest of the body and into the target muscle. That is a very intelligent goal. The question is whether we can ever isolate muscular stress as completely as he suggests.
How do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel right now in your 60s? Do you have any knee pain? Do you have any injuries that you sustained throughout your career? What is your regimen right now?
I did have injuries because I trained sometime uh, too heavy. So I ended up having an injury in my shoulder, the right shoulder. I tore my right chest because I was training too heavy one time. But this one time was one repetition too much. The weight was far too heavy and I was fatigued. And instead to train with form, I kept my training regimen and I ended up having this torn chest because of the way I was training then. So yes, I do have some injury because of that, and but I am good today. I train well, and I enjoy training. That is the most important.
And he's honest about the reason this matters to him. He injured his shoulder and tore his chest after training too heavily while already fatigued. He describes it as one repetition too many. That is something many lifters only understand after it happens. The repetition that causes the injury normally does not appear out of nowhere. It often comes after fatigue has already changed the position, the control, or the judgment of the person lifting. Benfatto did not stop believing in hard training. He changed what hard meant.
Deadlift or squat make you to increase the size of your waist. So the way of doing is to make sure that you squat heavy for the quadriceps or you deadlift heavy for the lumbar. If you do so, the weight will not be heavy, but only heavy for the exercise muscle. So you don't have to deadlift 300 kilo. You can deadlift 100 kilo in slow control manner, full range of motion with perfect posture and positions, and target the lumbar and make sure that the lumbar is responsible for lifting the weight, and therefore you will stress the lumbar as much as you do with 300 kilo. You become an alchemist. You transform lightweight into heavy because of the form. Likewise with the squat. You don't have to squat 300 kilo. If you squat with form, you will then drop the weight significantly to a point where it will become heavy for the quadriceps and not heavy for the weight or for the ego or for other muscle that you don't want to contribute during the squat. You don't want really the lumbar or the glutes or other muscle to uh, um, to come into play while you are doing the squat. what you want is to make sure that the effort come exclusively from the quadriceps in order to stimulate maximally your quadriceps. That's what you want. That's what you should do.
This might be the strongest idea in his entire philosophy. The weight does not only need to be heavy on the bar, it needs to be challenging for the muscle you are trying to train. By changing posture, controlling the speed, and reducing assistance from other muscles, a lighter load can become much more demanding locally. That is completely true in practical terms. Anyone who has slowed down a lateral raise or removed the swing from a curl has experienced it.
Francis keeps his elbows stationary and close to his head, which makes the tricep do all the work. It's this attention to detail in Francis's workout that has produced the results you can see today.
Perfect. Go slowly. Shoulder down a little bit. Voila. And you will sense the muscle working, and you can count. And
it's amazing. The moment he does it right, you can actually see the muscle like immediately.
Shoulders down.
Very good. You see, you sense the muscle working. And as I said earlier, the most important thing is the sensing.
This demonstration shows exactly what he means. At first glance, this might look too easy because the weight is so light. But Benfatto changes the position, lowers the shoulder, slows down the movement, and suddenly the target muscle has to do considerably more work. This is the difference between simply completing an exercise and deliberately loading a muscle. The exercise may look less impressive, but the target area can feel much harder.
You can. Why it's hard? Because all the muscle fiber come into play. Now if you go like that, the shoulder come into play, the speed come into play. Body leverage. Angle of work is important. You see the angle of work? Very good. Touch my hand. Yes.
There you go.
Even more.
Tuck this.
Push.
Right there.
The angle and the position absolutely matter. But we should be careful with the idea that one muscle can ever work completely by itself. In practical terms, true isolation is almost impossible. Even during an isolation exercise, other muscles still stabilize the joint and assist the movement. What we can do is place more of the demand on the target muscle and reduce unnecessary help from everywhere else. But on a squat, press, row, or deadlift, several muscles have to contribute. That is not automatically a mistake. Sometimes the entire purpose of an exercise is to train several muscles together and allow the body to produce more force.
Excellent.
Excellent. And it's a great example because he has definition. So you can see through the skin what is happening. And at the end of his set, the triceps will be denser, fuller, and more defined. And he will not go on and on doing sets. A few limited sets will be enough for triceps. Move on now.
This is where I agree with part of the message, but not all of the explanation. The muscle can look fuller immediately because it is pumped. But an exercise does not suddenly create permanent definition during a set. Definition depends on how much muscle is present, how lean the person is, and how that muscle is structured. The useful lesson is not that slow repetitions magically carve the muscle. The useful lesson is that you might need fewer sets when every set places more continuous tension on the target area. The practical takeaway here for regular lifters is that this method is probably most useful on lateral raises, curls, triceps extensions, leg extensions, cable movements, machine exercises. It can also improve compound exercises, but lighter training still needs progression. Over time, you must increase something: the load, the repetitions, the range, the control, the time and attention, or the quality of the contraction. Otherwise, making a lightweight feel difficult can become an excuse for never progressing. But Benfatto's control does not only change how the repetition looks, it also changes where he believes a set should finish.
Yeah, the idea is to emphasize muscle sensation. So the load must correspond to the number of repetitions. Now we must also acknowledge what is going on inside our body. Because you don't want to end up a set because of, I would say, a cardiac failure, if I may say. You want to end up a set because the muscle cannot move the weight anymore in perfect form of execution. So you need to know what is going on. And it's about precision.
So that's the failure.
So doing one exercise.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I will let you finish. I have a question. I'm going question a bit.
All right. The aim is to go to muscle failure, but not at the beginning, because you want to prepare with lightweight. You start, for example, with 20 kilograms or 30 kilograms squatting, and then you improve the weight each set, and then you still improve the form. But you want to make sure that the weight, the reps ratio, and the great form of execution bring you to muscle failure in perfect execution. So it's a perfect set.
This is not the same definition of failure we saw from Dorian Yates, Tom Platz, or even Ronnie Coleman. For Benfatto, the set does not continue until the entire body becomes incapable of moving the resistance. The set finishes when the target muscle can no longer complete another repetition with the same position, range, and control. That is technical failure.
Where is the failure? Do you believe going to failure, because let's say when I'm normally trading, I push myself to failure to the point where I do sacrifice the form, where I do sacrifice the technique. Where does the failure comes in PPM? How far do you go and where do you stop?
In PPM, you learn to work with perfect execution. So when you sense and when you verify by yourself that you're using external forces, you're not training the muscle at 100%. So you're not going to make this muscle to fail. You're going to make you to fail. But the muscle will not train as hard because now you're using body leverage, speed, you reduce the range of motion and all. In PPM lingo, no, we don't do that. We stop when we cannot add one more repetition in despite of our greatest effort in perfect form.
This is a much cleaner and probably more repeatable form of failure. Once you begin swinging, shortening the range, or involving other muscles, Benfatto considers that the target muscle's set is finished. Dorian would often continue. Tom Platz would definitely continue. Ronnie might use more speed and whole body effort from the beginning. Benfatto stops at the boundary where they would often begin extending the set.
And we end the exercise where we have exhausted the exercise. When there is nothing more we can do to improve muscle sensation, muscle tension, muscle contraction. So we stop. There is no reason to go. We don't have the resource. We don't have the capacity. We don't have the energy. Stop. Recover now.
For most ordinary lifters, I think this is a very useful default. Take the target muscle close to its limit, but do not turn every repetition into a completely different movement just to say that you reach failure. That gives you a clearer standard. It also makes it easier to compare one workout with the next. The potential problem is that perfect form can become too subjective. Someone can stop the moment a repetition slows down and claim that the muscle has failed. Another person can keep changing the technique so much that the target muscle is barely involved. The useful middle ground, I would say, that is allowing the repetition to become difficult, allowing it to slow down, but stop when the basic mechanics of the exercise have meaningfully changed.
How long do you recover?
It depends the muscle you train, but you can train a small muscle. And in PPM also we don't only train to stimulate growth and to progress. We also train to accelerate recovery. Let's say I've trained today. I did one muscle or two muscle. Tomorrow I go to the gym, I'm fatigued. What I do? I don't go back home. No. I stay and I train one muscle. This training will help me to accelerate my recovery. So therefore, I will be prepared and ready for the next day to train with more ability. But when I will train, I will be conscious. When I'm fatigued, I will not push. I will take easy. I will work on form even more. I will drop the weight. I will not go to muscle failure, but I will still work out. I will still train. I will still go to the motion in order to identify different training sessions. For example, I train to stimulate growth, but I can also train to maintain my muscle integrity. Mm-hmm. So that's good enough. I don't think every bodybuilder go to the gym and stimulate growth every time they go to the gym, or make worthwhile training every time they hit the gym. It's impossible. But if you train hard every time, this is counterproductive. But now if you acknowledge I'm fatigued today, so I will train only with my possibility. I am exclusively dependent of my resource, so therefore I will train based on my possibility. And then I can accelerate my recovery. But if I push too hard, if I am fatigued, I don't recover from my last session. I will be overtrained quickly, and my next session will be mess also. And it's a circle, a vicious circle, and it's never end up. And some bodybuilders never progress because they train too hard, too often. They don't understand this fundamental that is, we cannot stimulate growth every time, so we have to accept to go to the gym, to recover or at least to maintain the muscle.
This part is more controversial. Benfatto does not believe that every gym session needs to be a growth session. If he feels fatigue, he might still train, but he reduces the weight, concentrates on technique, and avoids failure. In his mind, that easier session can help him maintain the muscle and prepare for the next harder workout. I like the distinction between training to grow and training to practice or maintain. Not every day has to become a personal record. But I would not automatically assume that training another muscle will accelerate recovery from the previous workout. Sometimes a lighter session may make you feel better. Sometimes the best recovery session is simply recovering. The important part is that he changes the demand according to his condition.
What do you think about the muscle? I'm just trying to understand the system, the frequency. How do you define the frequency of training? And what do you think is the training, let's say, one body group, one muscle a week, or once in 5 days? What is your suggestions on that? What is your take on that?
I will say that one muscle at a time, train the whole body, and then after repeat. Now you can train two muscles in one session. It doesn't matter, it's depending on your resource, on your motivation too. Let's say you go to the gym tomorrow, Artemis, and you train the back. After the back, you sense that you had a tremendous workout, you trained very hard, and you was happy. With form, I suggest you to train with form. And then after, you don't know what you do. And deep down, you know that you will not be able to train as hard as you did for the back. So it will be a mistake to train the chest. So it's wise to say, okay, I'm coming back tomorrow and I do the chest. Instead, because it's part of your program, to follow your program. You're not a computer, you're not a machine, you're a human being, and you depend on your resource. And if you want really to be productive, efficient, I will say, with no waste of time and energy and resource, you have to rely on your resource and not on your program.
This is pure autoregulation. If he trains his back extremely well and no longer believes he can train his chest productively, he goes home and returns another day. He does not force the second muscle simply because it was written on his schedule. For an experienced lifter, that can make sense. But experience is the key word. A beginner can easily confuse being uncomfortable with being incapable. Without some structure, listening to the body can become only training when I feel fantastic.
Sorry, you're professional bodybuilders, you dedicate your life to train, to eat, to prepare, to be a champion. That's different. But top bodybuilder and champions are not the best examples for the majority of trainees. The people who train, the million and million of people who train, who exercise worldwide, they are the worst example, the champion. Don't do like them. Don't follow their system and their methods. Unless you have the requisite genetic, unless you dedicate your full life and your energy to build the best body and the biggest body, unless you take chemicals as well, follow them. But if you don't have the same goal and don't do it, don't follow because they are not good examples. They can inspire us, yes, a lot. Of course, they can inspire us a lot.
And this might be the most important statement in the video. Professional bodybuilders are inspiring, but they are often terrible templates for ordinary people. Their genetics are different, their recovery circumstances are different, their entire lives might be organized around training, food, and sleep. And their chemical support can be completely different. Copying the program without copying the circumstances does not produce the same result. And this is, by the way, one of the central messages of this channel. Do not copy professionals blindly. But that does not mean they have nothing valuable to teach us. The goal is to separate the useful principle from the exact routine. Take the lesson, then adapt it to your recovery, your schedule, your experience, and your goals. Otherwise, you normally end up with a natural tired lifter wondering why the professional routine is not working. I would not completely remove the program. I would combine a structure with auto regulation. Have a plan routine, track your exercises, repetitions, and progress. But adjust the load, the number of sets, or the proximity to failure when your performance clearly tells you that recovery is not there. The program gives you direction, your performance tells you whether the direction is working. Francis Benfatto's later philosophy has real value. Slowing down the repetition, controlling the range, and reducing unnecessary assistance can make a target muscle work much harder with less weight. For older or injured lifters, or anyone who has spent years chasing numbers, that can be an extremely useful change. But we also have to interpret the story honestly. Benfatto did not build his entire legendary physique with a few light, slow sets. The younger Benfatto trained heavy, performed considerable volume, rested briefly, and sometimes trained twice per day. The later system came from everything he learned after that, including the physical and mental cost. So, I don't see PPN as proof that load no longer matters. I see it as a method for getting more muscular value from the load you can safely control. That is not the same thing. The weight still has to challenge the muscle, the training still has to progress, and the body still needs a reason to adapt. The strongest part of Benfatto's philosophy is longevity. He's not only asking, how much muscle can I build from this workout? He's also asking, can I continue training this way in my 40s, 50s, and 60s? After watching what happened to so many great bodybuilders, that might be the most important question. Do you think perfect execution can make lighter weights just as productive? Or do you believe that Benfato could only maintain this approach because the heavier work had already built his physique? Let me know which side you are on. From Ronnie Coleman's heavy high volume approach to Benfato trying to create maximum muscular tension with the minimum necessary load. Two completely different methods, but both still have to answer the same question. Is the muscle progressing? This has been Francis Benfato's perfect form philosophy decoded. See you next time.